Delhi NCR is facing viewers. The Aravalli Range, one of the world's oldest mountain range and North India's natural shield against desertification, is under threat. Not from nature, but from a change in its definition.
Our top focus, the Aravalli Range, where about 90% of it lies in the state of Rajasthan, a part of it in Haryana, has always been problematic where ecology is concerned.
On the 20th of November, the Supreme Court accepted the recommendations of the Union Environment Ministry panel on the definition of Aravalli Hills, ostensibly to restrict mining.
One of the oldest fold mountains in India and the world, a region of distinct biodiversity, an area of shared cultural values. Aravalis is not just a landscape, but an important historic landmark, and that is disappearing in front of our very own. Hello and welcome to Unacademy. In this particular video, we are going to talk about the Aravalis and the recent Supreme Court judgment, which puts into question the very survival of the entire landscape that we refer to as Aravalis and what their overall impact is going to be. That is going to be very, very important for your examination, both in the prelims as well as the mains. Now, why are we discussing about Aravalis and why is it that there is so much ruckus created around the Supreme Court judgment? So, just to provide you a context, the Supreme Court, in an order last month, settled on a uniform definition of the Aravalli Hills and Aravalli Ranges and paused the grant of fresh mining leases and licenses inside the area spanning from the region of Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Gujarat. Now, this has created a lot of hue and cry. At the same time, people have been pleading to save the Aravalis all over the country. Now, why is this issue in so much of news? First of all, Aravalis has been a region which has been degrading ever so slowly. Now, this is a landscape which is more than 2 billion years old. So, this is one of the oldest fold mountains created in the country, much before the formation of the Himalayas. At one point of time, these Aravalis were so massive that the ranges would be covered with ice and massive glaciers would feed the larger rivers which would originate from the area. Over a period of time, erosion and weathering has reduced the height of these mountain ranges and now they are referred to as hill ranges. These Aravalis, they continue from the area of Gujarat all the way to the region around Delhi NCR. Now, the mining mafia, the persistent political and the businessman nexus which has prevailed over decades now, that has been accountable and that is the reason behind slow and steady disappearance of the Aravali. Now, it was found out that due to these illegal mining and the issuances of licenses, bribery, etc., slowly and steadily, some of the hills were disappearing. Now, there was a finding initiated by the Supreme Court in itself, which talked about and which found out that various different states they don't even have a uniform definition of the Aravalis. So, as a consequence of that, the conservation could not be carried out in a uniform manner. There were excavations which were carried out overnight. And again, as I told you about the nexus, that is where a lot of the forested area, a lot of the biodiversity was also destroyed. The impact of it was manifold, something that we will talk about in a short moment of time. But before coming to that, earlier, what used to be the situation was that the Forest Survey of India, FSI, basically provided a definition of the Aravalis. And as per the definition, which was provided in 2010, the hills with a slope greater than 3 degrees, foothills having a buffer of more than 100 meter, interhill distance and the valley width of 500 meter, and any region which is enclosed within the area would be considered to be Aravali hills and ranges. This is the definition provided by the Forest Survey of India. But this definition was not widely followed across all the states where the Aravali hills lie. As a result of that, this meant that the rules could be tweaked in order to benefit some people with vested interest. Now, the Supreme Court basically ordered the formation of a central committee which included members from Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the Central Empowered Committee, the Forest Survey of India, and all of them, they brought forward a definition of the Aravalli Hills and Ranges. Now, as per the new definition which was submitted to the Supreme Court, that basically means the Aravalli Hills would now include any area with an elevation of 100-meter or more from the local relief. So, what that means, if this is the landscape, any region with a height of 100-meter or more, that would be considered to be the Aravalli Hills. Now, that means any hill which is shorter than 100-meter would not be included as a part of Aravalli Hills. Now, as per some of the estimates by the NGOs, that means that earlier you had around 12,000 of these hills to be included in the Aravalli ranges. But as per this definition, only around 1,000 odd hills would be considered to be a part of the Aravalli Hills. Many of the others would be excluded from the Aravalli Hills definition itself. Now, what would constitute an Aravalli range? Two or more Aravalli hills located within the proximity of 500-meter from each other, that would consist a range. Now, the Supreme Court has accepted this definition of Aravallis. The amicus curiae objected to this definition, saying that this will basically exclude many of the hill features, and that would damage the larger ecosystem if we don't conserve them. Having said that, there was a counter argument that the existing mining leases which are there, the existing conservation programs which are there, that can also be put to risk. But apart from all this noise, what is the real story and what is the real reason for concern? When we take a look at the entirety of the topographical feature of the Aravallis, this is the topographical map, you will observe that in many of the regions, you will observe that yes, the height is substantial. The height is more than 300-meter, 400-meter, and so on. But in many areas, for example, in between Ajmer to Sikar, you will find that the height is less than 100 meters as well. Even as you move towards the region of Gurugram, there also, that is in the region around Haryana, there also you will find that the height is less than 100 meters. So, if you accept the definition which the Supreme Court has ideally accepted, that means these areas won't be considered to be a part of the Aravalli Hills. Now, what does it do? It has got multifarious impact. Let us understand that. And let us understand that in a greater detail. So, for example, let's suppose what you see on your screen are two hills which have a height greater than 100 meters. In between them, you have a hill which has a height of 90 meters. So this won't be considered to be a part of the Aravalli Hills. So this won't be liable to be conserved. It won't be brought under conservation. So any individual who is interested in mining, and the mining mafia in the region is very strong, so what they can do is they can excavate this. They can immediately start digging this. And that would create gaps. Now these gaps would allow for winds, right? Desert winds carrying the dust. And the dust storms would be very common and consistent in the region of New Delhi, in the region of NCR, and in the region of Madhya Pradesh as well. So that is where we have to understand the role of Aravalis in general. So when we talk about Aravalis, Aravalis have a greater role to play in ensuring groundwater recharge. Now, these are the hill features which stop the monsoonal rainfall, or basically the moisture bearing clouds. And that is where this rainshed area or the watershed region causes lot of rainfall and precipitation in the region, which allows for slow and steadily percolation of water. And that slow, steady percolation recharges the groundwater, which is then used by the local community for drinking water purposes, for agriculture, for animal husbandry, and other domestic utilities. Other than that, this Aravalis, they are also responsible for ensuring river flow in rivers such as the Chambal Basin, River Luni, for example, the Chambal Basin, right? Now, there, many of the rivers, they get their water from the Aravalli Range. But if these Aravalli ranges, they have the gaps in between, they become fragmented, then the rivers also won't have that recharge. And also understand this, the aspect of erosion. So let's suppose I have hill features like this. Okay. Now, in this case, if there is rainfall which occurs, water basically slow and steadily percolation will happen, and the water will be caught by these ranges. So, as the consequence, local streams will also get regenerated. But if I somehow tend to remove this, then all that water immediately starts to slide down, and mass movement will happen, mudslide, then you have debris flow. This will further degrade the region of the Aravallis. So, it will be a kind of a vicious cycle which will be initiated. Other than that, the region of the Aravallis, because they hold so much moisture, they have the presence of greenery. So they basically offer a kind of a moist wall which prevents strong winds from the west encompassing the entire region of Indo-Gangetic Plain. So it moderates the wind speed as well, makes the wind slightly moist, and otherwise you have very dry winds coming from the region of Thar Desert. So, if you have these gaps created in the Aravalli ranges, that can always create wind-borne desertification. What does that mean? That you have the sand, okay? The sand which is carried by these winds, that sand will be dumped in the region of Madhya Pradesh, in the region of Delhi NCR, and that sand will make the land infertile, due to which you will find that future growth will not happen. Future growth of vegetation, etc., will be restricted. So the desertified areas will keep on increasing. And mind you, India being a party to the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, India has pledged to prevent the further expansion of the desert areas. That is why the central government has also announced the Green Wall project in the region of Aravalis to bring about greater amount of afforestation and reforestation activities in the area. So this move by the Supreme Court and also the definition provided by the empowered committee risks and endangers it. And mind you, Aravalis is also a region of great biodiversity, a land having various tiger reserves, multiple national parks, and multiple Ramsar sites. If that region faces water scarcity, then the biodiversity will also get much more scarcer. We are already seeing this with the reduced number of leopards and carousel in this region. Now, this is an area which has always been in the eye of various different mining mafias because this is very rich in terms of mineral presence. Because obviously, one of the older landforms. So you will see from sandstone, limestone, lead, zinc, marble, copper, gold, tungsten, all these important elements that you find, all these important minerals vital for industrial usage, etc., they are to be found in the region of the Aravalis. That is why the mining mafia is very active. And what they do, they slowly and steadily excavate this region. Overnight, temporary roads are built, all the materials are excavated, and they are basically dumped across the border in the sense that the state borders are crossed so that the police authorities are not able to catch them. So, as a consequence, what would have been a continuous range, as you can see, that starts getting degraded. Now, once you basically put that 100-meter limit, that means the smaller ones of them, they can easily. So, that is why the Aravalis need to be conserved. So, here, the Supreme Court, by the way, has also issued some other directive, which has been ignored by multiple various different information networks. So, what are the other directives issued by the Supreme Court? The court has directed the preparation of a detailed management plan for sustainable mining, MPSM, so that you have mining or the zonation of the areas where mining must be absolutely prohibited, the critical areas, the eco-sensitive areas. Identify zones where the mining can be limited. Identify zones where mining may be permitted but regulated. Map sensitive habitats and wildlife corridors. Evaluate cumulative ecological impact. So Supreme Court has asked the government to prepare this MPSM. Now, if we want to conserve the Aravalis, this has to be followed to the absolute T. Why? Because regulation, periodic monitoring, and authentic data coverage is important if we want to prevent the Aravalis from being degraded by this entire nexus that we are observing for a very long period of time, due to which rivers such as Luni have become highly ephemeral or seasonal. Vanus is observing reduced flow. And the entire region, in the midst of climate change, is experiencing water scarcity. So that is where the Aravalis require conservation. What should be done going ahead into the future? The entire region should be declared an eco-sensitive zone, and mining in any form should be absolutely banned. There has to be a greater initiative to make and a greater effort on the side of the NGOs, the state government, and the central government to bring forest cover back into the region of the Aravalis. Because, mind you, Aravalis are the protector which prevents the desert from spreading in the east. And the Indo Gangetic Plains, which is one of the grain bowls of the country, that Indo Gangetic Plains risks being a desert unless and until the Aravalis are preserved. Other than that, there's a lot of cultural significance, there is shared belief, and there is importance much beyond a simple landscape. What do you think should be done to preserve the Aravalis? Let us know in the comment section below. I hope this has added some value to your content. And if you have liked the video, put that in the comment section and don't forget to click on the like, share, and the subscribe button. Till we meet again, take care. Goodbye. Thank you.